Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Military Wire with Mike Schindler. I am, in fact, Mike Schindler, and this is the place where we interview some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country in hopes that you, our viewer, get an aha moment that you can apply to your own life. And I'm excited with our guest today, Brian Reese, and I'll get to him in just a second. Before I do, I want to thank our sponsors, Bone Frog Cellars and Bone Frog Coffee, founded by my dear friend Tim Cruikshank and his business partner, David Johnson. Portions of the proceeds every time you make a purchase go to the Navy SEAL Foundation, or UDT, to help support the families of fallen SEALs. So be sure you check those guys out. And if you're shoppers on Amazon, we love it when you select OMF Community Outreach as one of your designated nonprofits. Funds from that go to help support the tuition for those who go through our program. So I want to get to today's topic. There are some in this country who have accomplished something that 93% of Americans have not. They have become part of that 7% club. It's a little bit less than 7% today. And those are men and women who serve in uniform, our veterans. And in doing so, they have likely earned benefits. And what's interesting about that is many times those benefits go untouched for a number of different reasons. Sometimes they don't know about them, and sometimes they don't want to navigate what they feel is a massive VA that makes it very difficult to get them. A little bit of data here says 8 out of 10 veterans are not receiving the benefits they deserve by law, and less than 25%, fewer than 5 million of veterans alive today, are receiving disability benefits by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. So in this episode, I've got Brian Reese on here who is going to help us unpack this. Brian is an Air Force officer, the author of the book, You Deserve It. As you guys see right here, You Deserve It. Be sure you pick that up. Brian is going to provide us with a step-by-step on how to access these benefits. So Brian, welcome to the Military Wire. Let's see if I can get that to stand up again. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Military Wire fans and fellow vets. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So, Brian, you've got both personal experience with navigating the whole veterans benefits piece. You've got more than 10,000 hours devoted to helping other veterans navigate this, get the benefits that they're entitled to. You've got this unparalleled insight and expertise on this. You also have a method, of which we'll get to here in just a little bit, because I think this method is pretty important for people to understand how they can apply it in their own life. But before we get there, why don't you share a little bit of your story and why this isn't so important to you?
Yeah, happy to do that. Let me just start with why this is so important to me. And you mentioned the 10,000 hours, and certainly it's an interesting fact to start thinking back to the number of hours I've actually spent researching, writing, helping fellow vets on the front lines to navigate all the benefits that they're entitled to their service. But the part of this that I think a lot of folks don't understand is why this is so important, not just to me, but to our teammates, to the veterans we serve. We help veterans celebrate life change. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that again. We help veterans celebrate life change. And I've had folks ask me before, Brian, are you a VA claim company? And I say, no, we're not. We're a education company that helps U.S. military veterans and their families celebrate life change. And the way that we help them celebrate that life change is by helping them get the benefits that they've earned for their honorable service to our country. And on a daily basis, okay, this is backed up by facts, by emails, by the phone calls we receive from veterans and their spouses, from the community outreach and support of folks messaging us on Facebook. In my opinion, and backed by the facts, we're helping end the military and veteran suicide epidemic. U.S. military veterans are more than 50% likely than their civilian counterparts who didn't wear the uniform to take their own life.
Yeah.
And, there's some underlying root causes there that some incredible nonprofits, one of them is Stop Soldier Suicide, a few of the organizations that we support, and we encourage vets to. But in my opinion, and in my experience, it comes down to community.
Yeah.
It comes down to identity.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of these things that nobody really wants to talk about. People are very quick to go to mental health. And don't get me wrong, that's a huge issue too
Yeah.
that we're trying to solve. But I actually think if you go deeper than that, I think it actually, you start to unpack and uncover what's really going on. And what's really going on is when veterans take that uniform off, and I experienced this too, and Mike, I'm sure you did too.
Yeah.
So much of our personal and professional identity is rooted in the branch of service, in the name that's over here, in the flag patch, in the things that are on the side. And all of a sudden, we leave the service and we don't know who we are.
Yeah.
And, I'm starting to talk a little bit about my own transition here. I'm not a dumb guy. Okay. I'm not the brightest bulb on the porch, but I'm not stupid. But I'll tell you, man, I was so scared during my transition out of active duty. I doubted myself. I mean, I filled myself with limiting beliefs. And I think it really came down to I just didn't really know who I was anymore or what I was good at
Yeah.
outside of what the military told me I was going to do. And so that level of fear, frustration, and anxiety, compounded with the mental health issues I was dealing with, post traumatic stress disorder, anxiety adjustment disorder, bipolar disorder,
Mm.
on top of chronic physical pain and injuries from my time as a cadet, from my time deployed, from my time wearing a uniform, it just led to this storm in which I literally just tried to numb out everything. And I did that with drugs and with
Mm.
alcohol. And it's a story, Mike, that I hear over and over and
Yeah.
over every single day.
Yeah.
Okay. I have been to the brink of suicide for anybody listening. And you may find that hard to believe, but I've been there. And I'm telling y'all, there's a way out. God created you for a reason and a purpose, and your life matters. Okay. And I want you to hear that today. And I want you to take a moment and let that marinate and let it sink in, because if you get that concept and you can look in the mirror one morning, maybe you're drunk, maybe you're high, maybe, whatever your situation is, your relationships are spiraling out of control, your spiritual world is upside down, your physical and mental health are out of whack. When you finally have that moment where you're able to look at that person in the mirror honestly and look at that person staring across from you and go, I got to make a change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mike, that's what happened to me. I remember looking across in the mirror, bags under my eyes, was sleeping horribly, was drinking through the night, would still get up and try to go to work in the morning and just power through on caffeine and coffee. And, just too many of those nights in a row that I finally just looked at myself and I went, if I don't change, I'm either going to end up dead or worse, I'm going to kill somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mike, that's just again, I'm sharing this level of vulnerability with you and with all the listeners, especially our military members, our transitioning service members, our veterans, their family members. This is very real.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Brian, I'm going to jump in here because you
yeah,
touch on something that I think is oftentimes overlooked, but you nailed it, and that is this whole sense of mission, purpose, identity. That it's assigned to us when we're in the military, right? We know what our purpose is, to save the world from bad people. We know what our mission is. It's whatever commander's intent is for the day, and we know what our identity is, right? It's what's on our uniform. And when we leave, suddenly those anchors that we have come to know and trust and believe in are stripped away. To your point, we're left really not knowing what to do, not knowing what to do next. And I think what I
exactly
love
right.
about what you're saying is helping people with their, celebrating their life change is really, the benefits are ancillary to what your greater mission is. So And it's important that people hear that we've got to land on this, this vision for your life, this mission for your life, understanding that God has a purpose for you. That's why you're here. You're not done yet. I love that. And I love that you took that desire and put it into this company. So talk to us a little bit about your company, what you do, because you've got this great book. You deserve it. The definitive guide to getting the veteran benefits you've earned. So how do you help people do that? How do you capture them from falling through the cracks so that they are shored up and can start pursuing their best self?
Sure. So real quick before we go there, I did transition out of the service in 2012. As you mentioned, I'm an Air Force guy. I know you're Navy. I'm not going to hate on you, but we always play some funny jokes. In fact,
Yep.
can I tell a funny Navy joke real quick
Sure.
before
Yeah,
I
please
jump
do.
into this?
I've heard them all.
We'll lighten it up just a little bit. So I sent this to some of my Navy brethren and sisters here yesterday. It's a sign that says, "I tried to change my password to Navy, but Gmail said it was too weak."
Well,
So,
yeah. So how am I going to respond? I'm going to let that sit and not respond. So, yeah.
it's all good. I just wanted to lighten it up for a second. So I founded VA Claims Insider. We're an education company. We're a peer play education company that offers coaching and consulting services to veterans who are pursuing increased VA disability benefits based upon their severity of symptoms and their eligibility. And that may sound like a mouthful, but it's really not. And I'll explain kind of how the concept plays out in real time and really kind of who we serve and why we serve them, and what brings them into our movement, into VA Claims Insider. So I founded the company, scared as all heck, because I was going Facebook Live in the summer 2016, and I was about to share my story for the first time.
Mm.
My parents, my closest siblings, my brother is a medical doctor. Nobody knew except my wife at the time. Unfortunately, she's now my ex-wife. She was the only person who really knew what was going on. Nobody else knew. So here I am, this pretty high performer, just crumbling.
Yeah.
And I finally realized that, probably the best way for me to get out of this is, number one, to just admit it and tell the world and own it. And number two, by serving and supporting and sharing that level of vulnerability, maybe other people would navigate to that too. And it would touch them in a way that makes them go, Brian, that's my story. Or that
Yeah.
happened to me, or that happened to my Uncle Bob, or that's happening right now in my own family, in my life. And that is exactly what happened. And we just started to grow by creating community. And I can't emphasize that enough. Community. If you were to ask me, Mike, and I actually wrote an article for military.com talking about this, of what does the VA need to do? Now, let me caveat that by saying I'm not a VA hater.
Yeah. Yeah.
I personally believe that the Department of Veterans Affairs is doing a decent job, and I think they're getting way better in some of the things that they're delivering, the education they're offering, the services they're offering, the explanations, the level of support, the ability to do it yourself online. I mean, they've gotten so much better. Okay. And they will continue to do that, is my hope and prayer, and what we're fighting for on the Hill. But the thing that they keep missing is community. The VA, the only way the VA, in my opinion, is really going to transform the lives of the veterans that it is chartered by law to serve, is only going to happen when they start building community
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
their programs. And you know how it is right now, Mike? You go into a VA clinic and, nobody talks to each other.
Yeah.
Veterans rarely even say hi to each other unless you're the person who engages in that conversation. You usually see us, with our heads down, walking to appointment desk, what we're supposed to go to. We check in and the person says, what are your last four? and you give
Yeah.
them your last four and they're like, okay, please have a seat and we'll call you when you're done. We've become a number in the system.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
it's all playing into this notion that we don't matter anymore, that our time has passed. We're no longer important to the mission. Now we're just the last four of our social security number. And so, again, there's a lot of things that systemically I'm trying to help change at the VA. And I think they can get there with building the sense of community. But that is why VA Claims Insider is so powerful. We have 24/7 live Q&A
Mm.
happening in a private Facebook group. Veterans who come into our program get to work with an expert level VA claim expert, a coach, within minutes of signing up.
Yeah.
And that person serves as your point person to coach you on your disability journey. And you kind of mentioned it is what makes it special.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our teammates, our purpose-driven culture, our community, and then the way in which our service is delivered. Okay. And you mentioned it earlier of mentioning this method. And so if
Yeah.
you're cool with it, I'll kind of go into it.
Yeah. Please do.
The method that we teach here, it's an 8-step program that happens over 30 days. Okay. We teach something I call the SEM method. And that stands for strategy plus education plus medical evidence equals the VA rating and benefits you deserve. It's a very simple equation. Okay. I mentioned to you, I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box. And so, I got to keep it very simple and very focused on what matters most. Okay. So let me give you an example. Let's break it down. The SEM method, the strategy, which, by the way, I talk about in the book.
It's good.
Talk about it in the book. I break it down in detail and it's fully explained, but I'll do my best right now in the time we have. Strategy. We learned this in the military, and it applies to every organization in the world. If you don't know where you're going and why you're going there, the strategy doesn't make sense, you're wasting your time. If
Yeah.
you've got a losing strategy, the best tactics in the world don't matter. The tactics are going to fail. So you have to execute and get the strategy right first. And when you do that, the tactics become easy. The basic blocking and tackling, the logging into va.gov, the, hey, where do I upload my medical records? Those are tactical things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to the strategy, it's things like, am I eligible for any of these 800 plus conditions that are codified in federal law? Do I even have a disability? Because I don't even know.
Yeah.
And then if I do have those disabilities, are they connected to my service? Yes or no? Maybe you already have a condition that's service connected. Let's say, you hear my voice, you have post-traumatic stress disorder, service connected, you're getting VA disability compensation for it, and it's paid out at 30% for you. Okay. Well, maybe you should actually be at 70% or even 100% based upon how your PTSD is limiting or affecting your work, your life, your social functioning. But if you don't know any different, if you don't even know that you're eligible for that increase based upon your symptoms, the tactics there aren't going to matter, because you have to have an approach that can help you accomplish the goal, which is to get the increase you've earned. So that's the strategy piece is key. And so I mentioned, Mike, when somebody signs up, they get connected with a coach in minutes. The first conversation you're going to have with a coach is you're just going to BS a little bit. Most of our coaches are fellow disabled veterans. Hey, tell me about your branch of service, years of service.
Yep.
What'd you do in the military? Did you ever deploy? Where you been? How's your life, man? Sister, brother, cousin, uncle? Like, what do you do now? Do you have a career? Are you retired, unemployed? It's a get to know you. And then that turns into, let's cook up a strategy for you right now. Tell me about your disabilities. What are you rated for, etc. Okay, so that's the first part. Then the education component. This is also a piece that is crucial. Okay. If you're educated about the VA disability process, which 99.9% of veterans aren't, in my experience, okay, if you know what you're up against, if you know the rules of the game you're playing, like an NFL coach, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if Bill Belichick had to coach the New England Patriots and he wasn't sure what the NFL rules were for that game.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty hard for him to develop a winning strategy. And so, what I tell vets, Mike, is you have to get inside the process. You have to understand what all these eligibilities and entitlements and case law precedent, these things, you have to have a basic understanding of those things. Because if you don't, you're never going to be able to fight a fair fight.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of Bill Belichick doesn't know the rules, and Sean McVay does know the rules. Okay, well that's not fair, right? But that's the game veterans are trying to play right now. They're not fighting a fair fight. So what we do is we actually have a virtual learning platform.
Hmm.
We teach live classes 3 to 4 times a day with our coaches, and any veteran in our program can pop in live and on demand to attend these sessions. Okay, so that's the education piece. And then finally, the medical evidence. In my experience, it's the most crucial portion, the most important part. VA disability claims are won and lost based on medical evidence. And we all know, and I'm sure you do too, Mike, none of us want to be that guy or gal wearing the uniform who's fallen out, going to sick call, you're weak and broken, you can't deploy, you're on a profile. There's a stigma
That's right.
associated with being broken that is not acceptable in active duty service. Well, what happens? It's the ultimate hamster wheel catch 22. We don't go to the doctor while we wear the uniform. We get out of the service and we go, hey, I have sleep apnea now. Hey, I have major depressive disorder. Hey, I've got headaches. Hey, I've got back problems. Hey, I had surgery on my shoulder. Hey, I had whatever. And, most of it either ends up getting denied or underrated. And that's usually the first time, Mike, that a veteran has this awareness of, wait a second, what happened? Like I have all these conditions. Why aren't they eligible for benefits? And that's probably the first time that veteran goes to Google and types something like, my VA claim was denied, why? Or denied VA claim, now what do I do? Right? And so
Yeah.
what I try to do is talk to vets. If you're wearing the uniform, by the way, and you're hearing me right now, get your butt to the doctor. Tell them everything going on with you. There is no stigma of you being broken. Get in and tell the doctor everything so you get this stuff documented while you're serving. If you're already a veteran, get your butt to the doctor. Pick up the phone. Make an appointment with your VA primary care manager. If you don't have VA healthcare, you don't trust the VA. If you've got private insurance, call your private doctor. The point being is you have to get these conditions documented in a medical record. Okay. That's the medical evidence piece.
Hmm.
The final portion of that, which is super important, is we have a network of independent medical providers who can possibly help with disability examinations and supplement your existing medical evidence of record with something called a nexus letter. Okay. It's also called an independent medical opinion. All that is it's a fancy term for a document inked by a medical professional who explains in their professional judgment, experience, education, what the medical research says, what the case law says, the likelihood that that disability is somehow related to your service.
Hmm.
Okay. And again, it's an opinion.
Good.
It's not facts. It's not end all be all. It's a medical opinion rooted in the evidence of record. But it can be extremely powerful in helping veterans connect disability conditions that were maybe previously denied or maybe it's a condition that you're trying to go for and you've been out of the service for a year. So again, there's tons to unpack here, but the
Yep.
concept is strategy plus education plus medical evidence equals the VA rating you deserve. And I talk about it and break it down in detail in You Deserve It, the definitive guide to getting the veteran benefits you've earned. You can also check us out on our website. You can start free if you need some help at vaclaimsinsider.com.
Oh, that is great. Brian, I think this is so important. And I love that you have built community around this. I love that you give somebody essentially a sage, a guide, a mentor to help navigate through this process. I think that's so important. I love, I started earmarking this book, You Deserve It. And I'm going to encourage our audience to truly pick it up. You deserve it. Be sure you pick it up. Be sure that you go to the website. Brian, again, what is the website again?
It's vaclaimsinsider.com.
Okay, that is great. So I want to close this segment and ask you a question that I ask all our guests is what was the best advice you received when you were transitioning out of the service?
The best advice I received transitioning out of the service. I'm going to use what my previous boss, he was an Army first lieutenant, deployed to Afghanistan, transitioned out of the service. He became a GS 15 at Hanscom Air Force Base. And he pulled me aside during the transition and he said, Brian, the difference for those who transition out of the service and do well and those who don't comes down to whether you've committed yourself to a life of learning and self-discovery.
It's good.
And that, man, that resonated with me, and that's powerful to me. It's probably why I read so much now. It's partially why I research so much. I mean, granted, I'm a nerd and I love to do that, but all leaders are readers.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And I would encourage all of you to take that same advice, regardless of where you are in the transition, to commit yourself to a life of learning, to a life of self-discovery, to this constant evolution of trying to be a better version of you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Brian, thank you for being on the show. It's tremendously helpful. This is tremendously good information. Be sure to our audience that you pick up Brian's book. Be sure you visit his website. Do not delay on this. If you think you might even qualify, get into that website now. Buy the book now. Be sure that you pick it up. And if you guys are ready to truly go deep and identify your true mission, purpose, and identity after service, figure out what your life is all about, be sure you reach out to us here at Operation Military Family as well. So Brian, again, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome, Mike. And to you and your team, thank you for everything you guys do. Okay, I really, really appreciate that.
You bet. Signing off.